My name is Hannah Cooper, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes the most expensive lesson in life is discovering who truly deserves your love. It began with $2,800,000 and ended with me finding my freedom across an ocean. My mother gave my brother the entire $2,800,000 from our old house insurance payout. Without a word of protest, I turned around, sold my own home, and moved to Canada. On Christmas Day, she called with that tone of entitled charity in her voice, saying, "Your brother has put together $600 cash for you. Come home quickly and thank him properly." I simply laughed and told her that I had used the money from selling my home to purchase all of my brother's company debts. Tomorrow would be the final deadline for repayment. On Christmas Eve, I sat in my Vancouver apartment watching the snow fall like goose feathers outside my window. The heavy flakes seemed intent on burying the entire city beneath their weight. Inside, the heating was turned up high, and Alexander was pulling a perfectly roasted turkey from the oven, its rich aroma helping to chase away some of the loneliness that comes with being so far from home. This marked our 5th year together and our first Christmas in Canada. There was no chaotic family gathering, no familiar Christmas carols echoing through the halls, just the two of us and a meal that was modest but made with love. My phone screen suddenly lit up, displaying the contact name Mom. My heart sank as I swiped to answer, and Barbara's face appeared on the video call, her expression already twisted with impatience. The background noise was terrible, filled with the sound of shuffling poker cards and relatives laughing loudly at their own jokes, making my eardrums ache from the cacophony. She was calling from my brother Ryan's house, that luxurious mansion in the suburbs of Chicago. "Hannah, have you gotten too big for your britches? You do not know enough to come home for Christmas. You are not even eating Christmas dinner. Just hiding in Canada drinking the northwest wind by yourself. Are you deliberately trying to embarrass me?" Her opening words carried that familiar commanding tone of interrogation. I looked calmly at her perfectly applied makeup through the camera and replied simply, "I have nowhere to stay if I come back." That single sentence hit her most sensitive nerve with surgical precision. Barbara's face instantly flushed red, and her voice shot up a full octave. "You sold that house of yours just to spite us, did you not? How can a girl have such a poisonous heart? You are cursing our family." I remained silent, simply watching her. Watching this woman who had given birth to me but had never once seen me as an independent person deserving of respect. At that moment, a face flushed red from drinking pushed into the camera frame. It was my supposedly successful brother Ryan Cooper. He swayed drunkenly while waving an envelope filled with cash like someone teasing a pet. "Hannah, do not get upset with Mom on Christmas. Your big brother cares about you. Look here. I have put together a big envelope for you, $600. That is enough for you to buy a plane ticket from Canada back here so you can kowtow and thank your brother properly." As soon as he finished speaking, even louder laughter erupted from off camera. "Ryan is so generous treating his sister Hannah so well. Hannah, hurry up and thank your brother. Your mother certainly did not love her son for nothing." Those voices felt like red-hot pokers being pressed into my heart, each word searing deeper than the last. $2,800,000 in insurance money. That was the final memento my deceased biological father had left me. The down payment that Alexander and I had planned for countless days and nights for our future home. Now, in their eyes, it was worth only $600 of humiliation. I felt no anger, only a bone-deep coldness and a sense of absurdity. The heart that had beaten, ached, and been disappointed for them countless times finally died completely in that moment. A cold, distant smile spread across my lips. Through the camera, I announced clearly and deliberately to the revelers on the other end of the call, "Mom, you can keep the $600. It is far too little. I used the $3,200,000 from selling my house, rounded it up nicely, and bought all of Ryan's company debts for a total of $5 million. I glanced at the watch Alexander had given me and continued in a voice devoid of emotion. It is currently 8 o'clock in the evening Chicago time. In 14 hours, the final deadline for repayment will arrive. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock sharp. My lawyer will arrive at your door with a court execution order. Mom and Ryan, you had better get a good night's sleep tonight. Without giving them any chance to respond, I hung up the video call immediately. The entire world became quiet in an instant. Outside my window, the snow seemed to be falling even harder. Alexander walked over and draped a thick cashmere coat over my slightly trembling shoulders, pulling me into his arms. His embrace was warm and strong, and my tense body finally began to relax for the first time. The silence lasted less than a minute. My phone began ringing with the desperate frequency of someone drowning, showing Ryan Cooper on the caller ID. I pressed answer and put it on speaker. Hannah. You ungrateful wretch. You little piece of garbage. How dare you conspire with outsiders to deceive your own brother? Your conscience has been eaten by dogs. Let me tell you, I will not give you one penny. If you dare show up at my door, I will break your legs. Ryan's roaring voice made the phone buzz and vibrate, mixed with my mother Barbara's shrill crying. Alexander sat beside me with no change in his expression, simply patting my back gently. I spoke into the speakerphone with a voice even calmer than before. What exactly did I deceive you about, Mr. Ryan? Paying back what you owe is a matter of course. This is what you taught me yourself. You? The voice on the other end was momentarily speechless. Then my mother's voice took over, screaming hysterically. Hannah, you have lost your mind. You have completely lost your mind. That is your own brother. If he goes under, what will happen to me? How are we supposed to live? How can you harm him like this? I do not have a daughter like you. From the day you transferred that $2,800,000 entirely to him, you stopped being my mother. After saying this, I hung up directly. The world became peaceful once again. Alexander's phone lit up at just the right moment. He opened his email and sent a prepared legal notice to both Ryan's company email and personal email. That legal notice was the first trumpet call of my revenge plan. It contained clear scanned copies of debt transfer contracts, stamped with the original creditor company's official seal and the bright red seal of Alexander's law firm. Every page, every clause was ironclad legal evidence that could not be disputed. This was the dimensional reduction attack I had carefully prepared for them. They were accustomed to using family affection and morality as weapons, thinking that throwing tantrums and making scenes could solve everything. But I intended to use the rules they despised most and were most powerless to resist to crush them completely. More than 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was my mother, Barbara, calling from her own phone. Her voice was no longer shrill but filled with suppressed sobbing and trembling. Hannah, please answer the phone. Your brother, after he saw that email, he nearly had a heart attack. Please withdraw that thing. We are family. You cannot do this to us. Her crying sounded so genuine, so helpless. If this had been 3 months ago, I might have softened, might have wavered. But now I only found it incredibly ironic. Family, I laughed coldly. Mrs. Barbara, when you transferred my life-saving money to your son, why did you not think about us being family? When you threatened me with death, forcing me to sell my house to fill his bottomless pit, why did you not think about us being family? Now you tell me we are family. I paused, giving her one last sliver of hope. Before 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, $5 million in my account, and everything can be discussed. Otherwise, let the judge go to your house and discuss it with you. After saying this, I blocked her number and blocked all the relatives in the family group who might plead on their behalf. On this Christmas Eve, I wanted to give them a gift they would never forget for the rest of their lives. Leaning against Alexander's warm embrace, memories of the incident that had pushed me completely into the abyss came flooding back uncontrollably. 3 months ago, my life should have looked completely different. That afternoon, I received a call from the insurance company confirming that my father's life insurance claim had been processed. The $2,800,000 payout had been deposited into the designated account, which was my mother Barbara's bank account as the beneficiary. In that moment, I was overjoyed. Alexander and I could finally afford the down payment on that 3-bedroom house in a Connecticut small town that we had looked at countless times. We had already planned out which room would be the study, which room would be the future nursery, and how the backyard garden would be filled with my favorite roses. I practically flew home, wanting to share this wonderful news with my mother first. But when I pushed open the front door, what I saw was my dear brother Ryan Cooper sitting boldly on the sofa, while my mother Barbara held up her phone with a beaming smile, the screen showing a bank transfer interface. Ryan, the money went through. Check quickly. $2,800,000. Not a penny less. Her voice was full of pride and fawning. My blood seemed to freeze completely in that instant. I rushed forward, staring intently at her phone screen, my voice trembling. "Mom, what are you doing?" "That money is Dad's insurance payout. It was meant for my wedding." Barbara did not even lift her head to look at me, just waved her hand impatiently as if shooing away a fly. "What yours and mine? I am your mother. I decide what happens to this money. You are a girl who will get married eventually anyway. What do you need so much money for? Your brother's company is having cash flow problems right now. This money is a lifesaver." Her tone was completely righteous, as if sacrificing everything I had to benefit her son was the most natural thing in the world. Nearby Ryan put on a fake sympathetic face and came over to pat my shoulder. "Hannah, do not argue with Mom. Your brother had no choice. Once the company gets through this rough patch, you will definitely benefit in the future. Do not worry. Would your brother really shortchange you?" After saying this, he immediately turned to discuss enthusiastically with my mother about using this money to secure some Australian mining project, speaking as if the throne of a billionaire was already beckoning to him. I looked toward my stepfather Mark, who had been silently smoking in the corner. He was the man my mother had remarried shortly after my biological father's death. Honest and weak, never having said no to my mother once in his entire life. When he met my gaze, he only sighed heavily and turned his head away. In that moment, I felt as if I had fallen into an icy cave. The betrayal of those closest to me, the coldness of bystanders, the celebration of the greedy. I felt like a complete joke, a pathetic joke abandoned by the entire world. My heart was stabbed bloody by a knife called family affection in that moment. I did not argue anymore or cry, because I knew it was useless. In this family, I would always be the one who could be sacrificed, who had to be sacrificed. I just stared intensely at the successful transfer screenshot on Barbara's phone, that glaring number $2,800,000. It was like a massive tombstone, burying my last illusion about this family. I turned around and left that so-called home without saying another word. That very afternoon, I contacted a real estate agent and put my house up for sale. The house that Alexander and I had purchased together, but was only in my name for better loan terms. The agent asked me, "Miss Cooper, your house is in a good location with new renovations, and the market is rising. Would you not like to wait? This price is somewhat of a loss." I told him, no need, the faster the better. I needed money, not to buy a new house, but to buy back my dignity and make those parasites who had been feeding on my blood pay the price they deserved. The second half of that Christmas Eve became a disaster zone for my phone. Before I blocked them, those distant relatives who had not contacted me in 800 years began a bombardment of calls, text messages, and WhatsApp messages, as if some switch had been activated. The content was all similar, nothing more than those morally manipulative phrases that could make your ears grow calluses from hearing them so often. "Hannah, she is your biological mother after all. How can you treat her this way? Your brother has loved you since you were little. Have you forgotten? People cannot be so heartless. Money is just material possessions. Family affection is what matters most. Listen to your third aunt's advice and withdraw that legal notice quickly." I left all of them on read without responding and finally just turned on Do Not Disturb mode. the entire world finally became peaceful. At 4 in the morning, a text message somehow bypassed the do not disturb setting and stubbornly popped up. The sender was Barbara. It was a photo of her in a hospital bed, face waxy yellow, oxygen tubes in her nose, looking at the camera with pitiful eyes. The caption read, "Hannah, Mom is dying. Do you really want to drive your biological mother to death for money?" What a masterful performance of the victim card. Unfortunately, her acting was too crude, and she greatly underestimated my intelligence. Alexander took my phone and enlarged the photo, a mocking smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Nice photo editing skills, but not careful enough. I remember this outfit from last month when Aunt Jennifer was in the hospital and she went to visit and take photos together. Did she crop herself out of a family group photo and Photoshop a hospital bed background? As he spoke, he skillfully pulled up the original group photo from his own phone. In that photo, Barbara was in great spirits, smiling brightly as she stood beside Jennifer's hospital bed with a group of relatives making peace signs. Without saying a word, I sent that original group photo back to her via text message. Silence is the most sophisticated form of face slapping. Sure enough, within less than a minute, Barbara called again from a different unfamiliar number. When I answered, what came through was no longer crying but furious cursing. "Hannah, you little beast, what are your intentions? You actually saved my photos to use against me. I raised you for nothing." I hung up immediately and blocked the number. Speaking even one more word to such a person would be a waste of life. Shortly after, Ryan's text message arrived, his tone completely softened, no longer the arrogant dominance from before. "Hannah, it is Big Brother's fault. I apologize to you, but 5 million really is too much. The company cannot come up with it right now. How about this? I will pay you back 3 million first, and we can slowly discuss the rest. Please take pity on your brother and let me off the hook." Looking at this text message, I laughed coldly. Now he knew to ask for pity. When he swallowed my $2,800,000, why did he not think to take pity on me? I replied with 12 words, principal plus interest $5 million, not 1 penny less. After thinking about it, I added one more sentence, or use your company ownership to pay the debt. After sending it, I turned off my phone. At exactly 10 o'clock Chicago time, in front of Ryan's luxurious mansion in the northern suburbs of Chicago, 2 lawyers in suits, accompanied by professional legal and asset evaluation personnel, rang the doorbell precisely on time. Through the tiny camera disguised as a pen in one of the lawyer's breast pockets, I could clearly see everything that happened after the door was opened. The person who opened the door was my sister-in-law Samantha, wearing a silk bathrobe with disheveled hair and sunken eye sockets, clearly having not slept all night. Behind her was Ryan, slumped on an Italian leather sofa, and my mother Barbara, whose face was pale as paper, looking as if she had aged 10 years in an instant. The family stared in terror at this well-organized debt collection army at their door, their eyes filled with despair and disbelief. The moment the door was opened, I knew that judgment had officially begun. "Mr. Ryan Cooper, we are the authorized legal representatives of Miss Hannah Cooper. This is a property preservation order signed by the court. Starting now, we will liquidate and seize all assets under your name to satisfy the $5 million debt you owe to Miss Hannah Cooper." The lead lawyer, Mr. Jang, a colleague of Alexander's, spoke in a steady voice without a trace of emotion. He handed Ryan a document bearing the official seal of the United States District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. Ryan's body swayed violently, and he collapsed completely to the floor, muttering, "Impossible, impossible." Asset evaluation personnel put on gloves and began placing yellow seals one by one on the collectibles, designer bags and Rolex watches that he usually used to show off. Each yellow seal was like a death warrant. Outside the door, the roar of tow truck engines filled the air as his brand new Tesla Model X and Porsche 911 were mercilessly loaded onto flatbed trucks. Samantha let out a piercing scream, lunging forward like a madwoman to grab the seals from the evaluator's hands. After being stopped by court officers, she turned to vent all her anger on Ryan. She threw herself at Ryan, tearing at his pajamas and scratching his face with her fingernails, leaving bloody marks. "Ryan Cooper, you fraud. Did you not say the company was about to go public? Did you not say we would soon move into an even bigger mansion? Where is the money? Where is my money? I must have been blind to marry a loser like you." In her hysterical breakdown, she revealed even more shocking inside information. It turned out that Ryan had not only misappropriated my $2,800,000, but had also tricked her into investing her private savings, her parents' dowry money, and even her grandmother's trust fund into that so-called Australian mining project. Now everything was gone with no hope of recovery. My mother Barbara finally snapped out of her shock and charged at Mr. Zhang like a madwoman, trying to tear up the documents in his hands. "You cannot do this. This is my son's home. Get out." Her tantrum tricks might work on ordinary people, but in the face of cold law, they only appeared ridiculous. The accompanying federal enforcement officer pushed her away and warned sternly, "Ma'am, please calm down. Obstructing federal judicial execution could result in your arrest." The word arrest was like a bucket of ice water poured over her head. Barbara stood frozen in place, her face twisted with anger and fear showing confusion for the first time. She finally realized that this was not a family dispute she could solve by crying, making a scene, and threatening suicide. This was federal law. At the same time, another team had entered Ryan's trading company, located in a Chicago business district office building. Employees watched in stunned silence as their office computers and desks were sealed, and the entire company was quickly shut down. With panic spreading, news traveled fast. Those business partners who used to call him brother immediately called not to offer comfort, but to demand payment of previously owed accounts. When the wall falls, everyone pushes. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. Through my phone live stream, I watched all of this with cold eyes, seeing my once arrogant brother reduced to a homeless dog in his desperate situation. I felt no waves in my heart, not even half a moment of revenge satisfaction. I only felt it was deserved. Evil people will face retribution. It was just a matter of time. Now, the time had come. Barbara's call came through my stepfather Mark's phone once again. Her voice no longer contained the previous arrogance and cursing. Only humble pleading remained. "Hannah, Mom is begging you, for the sake of blood relations, please let your brother off. He really knows he was wrong. You can make him do anything. Just please withdraw that execution order. Blood relations. When you used those blood relations to suck my blood, why did you not think of letting me off?" I paused, deciding to let her understand clearly. "Mom, do you still think you are saving your accomplished son? Do you know what your good son actually did with that $2,800,000 you gave him? It was not investment or business. It was to fill the hole he dug by using fake contracts to defraud high-interest loans." The crying on the other end of the phone stopped abruptly. I ignored her shock and continued to tell her the truth I had investigated, word by word. After selling my house, I did not immediately go to Canada. I spent $50,000 to hire Chicago's best commercial investigation company to investigate your son Ryan's company thoroughly. His company has long been an empty shell. All the financial reports were fake. Employee salaries had been unpaid for 3 months, and he owed debts everywhere. To rob Peter to pay Paul, he forged a fake mining procurement contract with an Australian company and fraudulently obtained a $5 million bridge loan from a private lending company. His original plan was to use my $2,800,000 as startup capital to package this fake project and deceive more investors, playing a game of getting something for nothing. Unfortunately, his funding chain broke before I took action. That private lending company was not stupid either and quickly discovered this was a disaster, eager to get rid of it. So Alexander and I stepped in. Alexander used his professional knowledge to find multiple regulatory violations in their lending process. We gave them 2 choices: Either we report their violations to federal financial regulators, or they transfer this $5 million debt to me at a price of $3,200,000. After weighing the pros and cons, they chose the latter. After all, with someone like your son, how much of this money they could recover was unknown, while my $3,200,000 was cold, hard cash. I leaned back on the sofa in my Vancouver apartment, watching the snow that had stopped falling outside my window, my voice as cold as ice. So, Mom, do you understand now? You were never saving him. You just became the most foolish and willing link in his entire fraud chain. You destroyed my house and my last expectations of you just to buy your fraud son a few more days of struggling to survive. Now he is insolvent, and the federal court is liquidating his assets. Guess what? That $2,800,000 you arbitrarily gave him will be legally classified as fraudulent asset transfer. It will also be used to satisfy my $5 million debt. On the other end of the phone, there was deathly silence. After a long time, a completely broken, inhuman wail came through. I quietly hung up the phone. I had personally torn off the hypocritical mask of the son she was proud of, the son she had used my life as a stepping stone to support. I let her see with her own eyes exactly what kind of character this pride of the Cooper family really was. This kind of complete spiritual destruction was far more satisfying than simple economic revenge. The news that Ryan's family was subjected to federal court enforcement on Christmas Eve exploded like a bomb in the entire family group chat. Some relatives who did not understand the situation took photos of the mansion sealed with court orders and posted them in the group with heartbroken text. My God, on Christmas Day, a sister is driving her brother to death. What kind of world is this? Immediately after, my mother Barbara's familiar, tearful voice message echoed in the group. She wailed about how I was heartless, how I had been blinded by money, how I had conspired with outsiders to plot against my own brother's property. In her description, I became a vicious, ungrateful executioner, while she and Ryan were innocent victims betrayed by family. For a moment, the group was in an uproar. Those distant relatives who did not know the truth, even some old neighbors who had once received kindness from our family, began to condemn me verbally. How did Hannah become like this? Too scary. After a few years of college, it all went to the dogs. She is even harming her own mother and brother. That Alexander lawyer is no good either. He must have instigated this. For money, they will do anything. I watched the endless stream of accusations and abuse scrolling on my phone screen, my fingers growing slightly cold. Alexander took my hand and said softly, "Do not look. Leave it to me." I shook my head. This battle, I had to fight myself. I remained silent for a long time, waiting for the group atmosphere to reach its peak, then slowly released the first piece of evidence. It was an audio recording of my conversation with Barbara about where the $2,800,000 insurance payout went. In the recording, her statements that girls are outsiders, like water thrown out, and that this money must go to your brother. He is the hope of the Cooper family echoed clearly in the ears of every relative who clicked play. The entire WeChat group instantly fell silent. Those elders who had been shouting the loudest before were like chickens with their necks wrung, unable to make another sound. Next, I released the second piece of evidence. A video from last Thanksgiving dinner at Ryan's house, where he drunkenly put his arm around my shoulder and bragged to a table full of relatives. In the video, his face was full of smugness. Let me tell you, my sister is my personal ATM. When she marries a rich man in the future, my company's investment will depend entirely on her. Ha ha ha. The video was not long, but every frame exposed his greedy, shameless nature completely. In the group, there was deathly silence. Finally, Alexander, as my legal representative, posted a concise official statement in the group. In the statement, he used no emotional language, only objectively stated the legal facts of the entire incident. First, Mr. Ryan Cooper, due to poor management and suspected commercial fraud, caused his company to be heavily in debt. Second, Miss Hannah Cooper, through legal means, purchased all debt rights of Mr. Ryan Cooper and his company from the original creditor, becoming his legal creditor. Third, this property preservation and liquidation was legal action taken by Miss Hannah Cooper after multiple unsuccessful collection attempts, with the entire process supervised and executed by federal court. At the end of the statement, he added a warning regarding the spreading of false statements about my client Miss Hannah Cooper on internet platforms and social media groups, maliciously defaming her reputation. This law firm has preserved evidence and reserves the right to pursue defamation charges. This statement was like a heavy hammer, completely shattering their final struggles. Several relatives who had been jumping up and down, conducting moral trials against me, almost immediately left the group chat. The rest also played dead, no longer daring to show their faces. This public opinion war they had started ended with my complete victory. I wanted everyone to see clearly who was actually distorting right and wrong and who was unworthy of talking about family affection. The federal court's asset liquidation results came faster than I had expected. All of Ryan's assets, including the mansion, several luxury cars, company office equipment, and some bank deposits and investment accounts, were completely liquidated with a total value of approximately $4,200,000. This meant he still owed me $800,000 in debt. He was officially added to the federal court's list of dishonest judgment debtors, commonly known as deadbeats. From then on, he could no longer apply for credit cards, could not get loans to buy houses or cars, could not make any high-end purchases, and his credit record would even affect his future employment. He went from being an envied President Cooper to a pariah that everyone avoided. His wife, my once proud sister-in-law Samantha, filed for divorce the very day she received the liquidation results, quickly divided what little marital property remained, and disappeared without a trace with their 2 children. Those business partners who used to be buddy-buddy with him, and the employees he had owed wages to for months, all came knocking at his door, surrounding the only place he had left to live, my stepfather Mark's old apartment in South Chicago. He was constantly hiding and dodging, living in constant fear, utterly miserable. But the most fatal blow came from his former business partners, those other investors who had been deceived by his fictitious Australian mining project joined forces to report him to the Federal Bureau of Investigation after learning of his bankruptcy. The FBI opened a case against him for suspected securities, fraud and wire fraud. Due to the large amount involved and solid evidence, he was quickly arrested by federal agents. My mother Barbara completely collapsed. She ran to the Chicago Federal Detention Center but could not even see Ryan's face. She came to me once again, and this time she was kneeling in front of me. She hugged my legs, crying with tears streaming down her face, begging me to drop the charges, begging me to save her only son. Hannah, Mom was wrong. Mom was really wrong. Your brother cannot go to prison. If he goes to prison, his whole life will be ruined. I beg you, please have mercy and save him. I looked down at her coldly. First, what I sued him for was civil debt dispute, which has been fully executed. Now he is being arrested by the FBI, charged by other victims he defrauded, with federal felony charges. I have no authority or ability to interfere. Second, even if I had the ability, I would not save him. I told her word by word, this is what he deserves. What is detaining him now is not me, but the federal government. Barbara collapsed on the ground, staring blankly, finally understanding what beyond redemption meant. Her son, whom she had treasured, whom she had considered her life's pride and support, was completely finished. And I not only recovered my money with interest, but also used this liquidation to take over some valuable client channels and supplier resources from Ryan's company. These would become the first foundation stone for the company Alexander, and I would start together, using his ruins to build my kingdom. There could be no more perfect revenge than this. With her son in prison and her daughter-in-law divorced and fled, Barbara lost all sources of income and emotional support overnight. Her meager Social Security payments were nowhere near enough after she had grown accustomed to a lavish lifestyle. The son she was proud of had fallen. And those relatives who used to revolve around her now avoided her like the plague. Falling from the clouds into the mud happens in an instant. More than a month later, she somehow found out about mine and Alexander's address in Vancouver and actually showed up at our door. It was an evening when I opened the door and saw her standing there. I almost did not recognize her. She wore a faded old down jacket. Her hair was gray and white, her figure hunched, her face covered with wrinkles, and she had aged more than 10 years. No longer did she have the commanding arrogance she had displayed toward me in that video call. When she saw me, her eyes immediately reddened, and muddy tears poured out uncontrollably. She dropped to her knees again. I stepped back and looked at her coldly. If you have something to say, say it. Do not keep kneeling at every opportunity. She froze there, crying even more heartbrokenly. Hannah, Mom was wrong. Mom really knows she was wrong. While crying, she intermittently confessed, saying she should not have been so biased, should not have favored sons over daughters, should not have given my money to my brother. She grabbed my hand, and those hands felt as rough as dried bark. Hannah, will you forgive your mother? Mom now only has you. From now on, Mom will live with you. Mom will wash clothes and cook for you. Take care of your children as long as you let Mom stay by your side. Her performance was as invested as always, tears, showing weakness, confession. These were her usual tricks. For over 20 years, I had softened and compromised countless times in the face of such performances. But this time, looking at her, I felt only ridiculous and pathetic. I gently pulled my hand away, my expression showing not a trace of emotion. I looked directly into her eyes and pierced through her final pretense with surgical precision. You do not want to live with me. You have nowhere else to go. Barbara's crying suddenly stopped. The embarrassment and awkwardness of having her true intentions exposed were clearly visible on her face. Looking at her, I understood very clearly. She had not come to ask for forgiveness. She had come for retirement welfare. She just wanted to find the next host she could leech off of. I turned and went into the house, taking out 2 documents I had prepared long ago from my study desk drawer. Just as I was preparing to take out the documents and settle everything once and for all, my stepfather, Mark, who had been silently following behind my mother, suddenly pulled me aside. He drew me to one corner with a complex expression, hesitating as if he had something to say. There is something I do not know if I should tell you. He sighed and finally spoke up. Your mother, the reason she is so obsessed with being good to your brother actually has a reason. He told me a story I had never heard before, something that had been buried for 20 years. It turned out that when Barbara was young, she had a very aggressive and strong personality. Once, she got into a heated argument with a neighbor over a trivial matter, and during the struggle, she accidentally pushed the other person down the stairs, causing serious injury and nearly paralyzing them. At that time, negligent injury was also a serious crime, and if she had gotten a criminal record, her whole life would have been ruined. Just when she was scared out of her wits, her 18-year-old brother Ryan Cooper, who had just graduated from high school with a bright future ahead of him, voluntarily stepped forward. He told the police that he was the one who pushed the person, that it had nothing to do with his sister. He took all the blame for her and was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Those 3 years of imprisonment completely destroyed his bright future. So she does not love you. She feels that she ruined your brother's life, and she is paying back a debt. Mark's voice was filled with helplessness and sadness. After listening, I remained silent for a long time. After the enormous shock passed, an even deeper sadness set in. I finally understood the source of her almost pathological obsession and sacrifice. It was a heavy emotional debt that had weighed on her for half her lifetime. But understanding does not mean forgiving. Her so-called debt repayment was built on sacrificing another innocent person, her own biological daughter, to make up for what she owed my brother. She felt justified in plundering my life, treating me as an offering she could use at will. This kind of compensation was essentially extreme selfishness, a twisted form of self-redemption. She was not paying back a debt. She was just using the method of harming another person to make herself feel at ease. This secret that had been hidden for 20 years did not make me feel any softness of heart. Instead, it made me even more determined to completely sever all these twisted bonds. Because I could see clearly that this chain woven from guilt and sacrifice, if not cut by my own hands, would bind me for life until it dragged me completely into the abyss. I took those 2 documents and returned to face Barbara. She and Mark both looked at me with complex expressions, perhaps thinking that secret would make me waver. I placed the 2 documents one by one on the coffee table in front of her. The first document is a declaration of severing our mother-daughter relationship. Voluntarily signed, it has moral binding force. Sign it, and between us, all emotional and financial ties are cleared, no further entanglement. The second document is a support agreement. I looked into her shocked and pale eyes and continued calmly. I will provide you with monthly living expenses according to Illinois state minimum legal support standards. This money can ensure you do not starve and that you have money for medical care when sick. This is done out of respect for my deceased biological father, the repayment I am making on his behalf for the debt of raising me. But signing this agreement has 2 conditions. First, you must accept that you and your good son disappear completely from my world from now on. You are not allowed to contact me for any reason or disturb mine and Alexander's life. Second, this support payment only lasts until your death. As for what happens after you pass away, I will not care, nor is it related to me. I place the pen next to the documents, giving her the final choice. You can sign it. Sign it, receive money on time every month, and live peacefully in your old age. You can also choose not to sign. If you do not sign, then I will not give you 1 penny. You can make trouble online, sue me in court, it does not matter. Whatever the court decides, I will pay exactly that amount. I will never give 1 penny more. Barbara was trembling all over. She looked at me in disbelief, as if looking at a complete stranger. Hannah, how can you be so heartless? I am your mother, she cried and reached out with both hands, wanting one last embrace, seeking that maternal warmth she had already squandered completely. I stepped back, calmly avoiding it. I found that embrace disgusting. Faced with cold reality and empty family affection, her pitiful self-respect crumbled completely. Looking at my cold, determined eyes, she finally understood that nothing could be salvaged. She picked up the pen, that hand that had once held mine countless times and had also hit me countless times was now shaking uncontrollably. She tremblingly signed her name on both documents, Barbara Cooper. He collected my copy of the documents and said to Alexander behind me, "Let us go." From beginning to end, I never looked back at her again. Behind me came her suppressed, desperate crying. But that crying could no longer stir even the slightest ripple in my heart. Cut, discard, separate. In that moment, I had finally achieved it. 1 year later, Alexander and I held a small, warm wedding on a grassy area by the ocean in Vancouver. There were no noisy relatives, no complicated ceremonies, just a few of our closest friends and the blue sky and white clouds above. Using the money I had recovered plus our own savings, we started a small financial and legal consulting company. Our company's first project used the channels and resources I had taken over from Ryan to complete a real profitable international trade deal. I wore the wedding dress Alexander had designed for me, standing in the Pacific Ocean breeze, watching him place the ring on my finger. In that moment, I felt surrounded by enormous happiness, a feeling of security and warmth I had never experienced before. From the steel and concrete jungle of Chicago to the sea and sky of Vancouver, it took me a full year to truly learn what it means to live for yourself. Ryan was ultimately sentenced to 10 years in prison for securities fraud and wire fraud. Barbara still receives the support payments I send her every month on time, enough for her to rent a studio apartment in South Chicago and live a poor but stable old age. And I never returned to the United States again. There was nothing left in that land worth my nostalgia. True freedom is not escaping poverty, but escaping those who harm you in the name of love. A true home is not a cage built from blood relations, but a warm harbor constructed by two loving souls together. When the sea breeze gently caressed my face, when Alexander's kiss landed on my lips, I knew I had finally found my own piece of pure land. There is no moral blackmail, no blood relation shackles. Only love, only freedom, only the life we choose for ourselves. This is the most precious understanding I gained at the cost of $2,800,000. It was worth every penny.